Hello Internet, it's Tiffany here again with another video. This one is going to be thanks to a comment from Ross Jones on one of my earlier videos. I think it was titled Other People's Projections of You. And in the comment, he just kind of mentioned that, it's easy to get drawn back to memories where we have strong emotions, especially if they're negative, like grief or regret or shame, right? When you look back on the past and wish you had made a different choice, usually, or that the choices that other people made that affected you had maybe been made in a different way. And that, in the earlier video, it sounded very oversimplified to just say thinking about this is a waste of time, so you should just stop wasting your time on it, right? That's way easier said than done, right? Because these emotions have such a heavy pull on us because we're designed as emotional creatures, right? This is what, if you look at, let's say, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the emotions and the ability to reflect on the past is what makes humans separate from other creatures, right? This is our superpower if we know how it works and can handle it. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about today was how to close what I call pocket realms. I'll do another video on those in a little more detail, but those that's what I refer to as the place where those memories exist that pull us back to those emotions as we were talking about. So when you become obsessed or even concerned with how people see you and thinking about, silly things you said that you wish you could have changed, and it doesn't matter how big or small. It depends on how much energy you have spent in the past thinking about these things up until the point where you realize that it's a drain on your energy or that it has become this pocket realm, right? Once you realize what it is, now you're at least aware every time I think of this thing, I'm dumping more energy into this thing and I wish that I could stop. How do I make this stop? And in a lot of cases, I think the problem with the approach is that we often, and I've done this myself many times, we often feel as though the way to fix this is to dive into that pocket realm and try to rework the memory, you could say, or try out different scenarios in a role playing type of fantasizing is what it is, right? So it's like, maybe I had a bad breakup and now I've grown and I can express myself in a different way, or there's things about me that I wish that I could say to that person. So when I think about that breakup, which is maybe a strong emotion of grief and regret that pulls me towards that memory, every time I dive into that pocket realm, I think of that person and suddenly I'm thinking, oh, I hate the way this ended, right? Now, what I might find myself stuck doing is pretending that I said something different, pretending that he said something different, pretending that, whatever it could be, that I could time travel to him, or that I just wishing that it became different is in itself almost playing in a dollhouse of this pocket realm, right? So the characters of yourself and of those other people and those interactions that you're remembering are not the real people. Those people are off living their own life. But when you start to puppet them around, it's like WandaVision is a perfect example. If anyone's seen the Marvel show, she wishes that her partner hadn't died. And so she creates these very intricate and very, silly and different eras of her and him having this life together in ways that she wished it could have gone. And by the time you get to the end of the series, you realize that she didn't realize it either, but she was actually controlling those other real people like puppets against their will and forcing them to play out these scenarios that she was kind of fantasizing about. And that's because of the power that she has for thought control. We don't have the same power that I know of to literally force other people to play along. But when we jump into these pocket realms and we have the projected versions of those people hanging out there, this is where we play dollhouse, right? And the problem is that the more energy you put into these pocket realms, the larger they grow, the more mass and the more gravity they have, the easier it is for you to get sucked into these fantasies, right? And you're laying awake at night wishing that you could say this thing to this person that you probably, in many cases at least, don't even still talk to. But if it's something, someone hands you the takeaway and says, enjoy your meal, and you say thanks, you too, right? It could be those little ones too. If those keep you awake or keep you jumping back in to play the characters differently in the pocket realm, then what happens is it's almost like a tumor, I want to say, in your energetic flow, or a dam, you could say, like a beaver dam, or a culvert that diverts energy. So if you have a steady flow of your life and your energy going along, these thoughts that you have or these experiences that you jump back to, every time you jump back to it, it sort of breaks the flow of that. I'm just wondering if I should try to draw this, but basically the energy comes down and it starts to fill up like a water balloon, you could say. And the more time you spend in there, the bigger this water balloon gets of your energy, and the easier it is as energy flows near it to be sucked down into it as well. I hope that makes sense as a kind of visual example. So what do you do? So people feel though that, okay, maybe we don't want to change how we pretend or wish that it could have gone. Maybe we'll just go back to the core memory, really replay it as accurately and with as much detail as we can, and try to understand it, right? Or try to work through the feelings as they come up, and somehow overcome this energy suck that's happening, right? And yeah, you do have to sometimes think about them, but you do have to also be aware that the pocket realm is not your actual life. And no matter how much time you spend in there, it doesn't change the way that the situation actually happened in the past. It doesn't change the, the state of whether you do or don't talk to that person still. But obsessing over it is easier said than done to stop doing if it's something that you have found yourself doing. And I've done this too, right? Sadness and grief and painful memories and everything reminds you of them, and suddenly you're in this world, right? How do we close it? How do we stop it? Once we realize that it's not real, it's not serving us to keep it, it's actually sucking out the energy, like I talked about in the other people's projections of us video. But how do we actually stop going back there? And for me, I've found that, affirmations and mindfulness can be really useful, journaling as well. I know they sound silly, but basically you have to see what you're trying to do when you're closing out the pocket realm, and it's to stop energy from diverting into the water balloon, right? So going into the water balloon does not stop the flow of water. It just drowns you in the balloon, right? So what you have to do is you have to build a bridge or a patch and close off the opening to that pocket realm so that you don't continually go back to it. So journaling, the reason this is helpful is because you can start to notice the things that really do pull you back, and because in a journal you can be as honest, some people do this in therapy, but somewhere you can be completely honest. Even if you're happily married with a family, but that ex, that one thing or that one whatever it is, constantly brings you back and you kind of don't want to talk about it, right? In a journal, you can say, why am I still thinking of this person? Or however you feel you can express it in a safe space that doesn't actually ever get to them as well, right? And once you realize I constantly keep coming back to these certain things, these must be the most pressing or the biggest drains on my energy. So now once you become aware of those holes, you could say, the leaks, then you can start to practice directing your attention away quickly once it goes to that place. So let's say, again, I'm constantly thinking about an ex, but I've now identified this person seems to be a leak for me. Now, every time I see something that reminds me of them, instead, I'm going to, some people do tactile things, sensory things, things you can see, touch, smell. Try to pull a different sense into your present awareness so that your thought doesn't spiral downward. I like to keep sometimes crystals in my pocket, just literally just to hold them and rub them around. Now, I don't know if they do additional things. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Whether you believe in them or not, I just find the texture in my hand is helpful, right? Maybe some people do affirmations or plan kind of a counter thought to when this person pops into your head. Let's say, I don't think about them anymore. I wish them well, you could even say, because trying to flip the emotion that you associate with them can be tricky, but helpful in patching that leak, right? So instead of thinking, oh, I wish they could see me how I really am, just say, you know what, they missed out on seeing me how I really am. I hope they're doing as well as I am, right? Um, and try to make this fit the concept of what I'm saying. Try to find a phrase. This is like Inception. I even just thought of with the totem. This is basically what that's trying to do, is to give you something to focus on when you lose track of the fact that you are in the pocket realm, right? um, so it's not about trying to fix the past. It's not about trying to change the past. It's certainly not always about reaching out to people from the past to try to receive closure in some way, right? The closure that you're really looking for is the closure of the neck of the water balloon, right? You want to stop dumping present day time and energy and thought into people or things that are not happening in your present reality. So every time you catch yourself slipping to there, whatever works for you, find a way to bring yourself to the present. Um, Consciously focus on, what am I touching? What am I seeing? Take a deep breath. Um, I can't think about that. I don't want to think about that anymore. Yeah, it sucked. Yeah, the feelings are real. I acknowledge my own feelings, but I don't give the past my attention anymore. And it's a process. And the more you practice it, the easier it gets. And you think of that person and you automatically start to say, you think of that bad memory or that regret or whatever it is, and you automatically start to switch yourself, no thank you, no thank you, to that thought, basically. And now, with some of these that I've been working on in this way, it gets to the point where you might always be reminded of things from the past. That's the other thing, is even closing the leak doesn't mean that the memory no longer exists. It just means you have detached emotionally from the memory. So you hold it, but it's not draining on you in any way. So maybe you still see or hear that song that reminds you of that person, let's say. But now you can kind of hear the song and just say, ugh, I'm not thinking about that guy. I'm not doing it. Right. And eventually I hope I'll get to the point where I think of the song or hear the song and just say, what a nice song. And you don't have that association maybe anymore. Or maybe you replay it or overwrite it with a new memory altogether. Right. But the main goal is to close off that thought pattern. It's not about going into the memory and trying to change it, right? It's just about noticing, okay, this is a memory that keeps me up at night. And what I'm going to focus on consciously trying to do is to stop thinking about that altogether. No good thoughts, no bad thoughts, cut them all off. And once that bridge is built, or that leak is sealed, then you won't find that drain on your energy. And it can be surprising sometimes how much lighter emotionally you feel once you've done this, because you don't realize until you stop how much certain things or certain patterns or certain regrets are really holding tightly. Like I'm feeling almost like a squeezing in the chest, right? That feeling actually does go away, and the racing thoughts and the constant, wishing you could change it, those things do go away, because once that hole starts to close tighter and tighter and tighter, even if you wanted to pour more energy down, it's harder. It has to go in a steady drip as opposed to a big waterfall, right? And so it does get easier with time. It's a process. You have to practice it. You have to teach your mind how to think and what you want to think about. And I will say, though, that it's worth it. It's going to be tough. Do therapy, do journaling, do whatever it is that works for you. But this is the goal you're trying to achieve. And the how is just to cut it off as best you can, right? I hope that makes sense. Thanks again for your question. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.